but officially I do.
Is it like you?
There's a school that's considered
Maybe you're
school
already
for
shown.
homeschooling kids, but it's a school. They've been in business for 20 years. It's a Mass.
All right, guys, we're gonna start our meeting. 6:02-ish. You can rise for the pledge. Jim? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, does anybody, I did not make paper copies of anything. Anybody need them? Do you need them?
I'm good.
Well, can we share?
Okay.
Do you don't have paper copies either?
I don't either. My phone.
Do you need the?
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, thank you. I love you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so first order of business is minutes from January 19th. Did anybody see any corrections to those?
No.
Whenever anyone's ready for a motion, I'm going to entertain.
Andy's too busy playing on his phone to make a motion.
Motion to accept the minutes as presented. Second.
All right, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Any opposed? No, any abstain? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0. All right, Melissa, would you like, well, no, let's start with Andy. Anything other than
Warrant
articles
articles?
that you want to update us on?
The only other thing I have is Karen said she received the request for you for compensation packages to town employees.
Mhm.
So each town employee is different depending on what department they're in. But right now we're at 100% coverage for a single insurance plan, 75% for a two-person, and 75% for a family. If they do not take insurance, they get $25 a week in lieu of insurance.
There was,
And then you would have Medicare of 1.45%, FICA to everybody except for police and firefighters of 6.2%, and then police compensation for retirement is 33.88%, fire is 32.99%, and regular employees are 14.6%. And I can forward you that if you need it for the minutes
Okay.
instead of scribbling quickly.
Okay, there was, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, she actually gave us a printout of that per person. Or per, I guess it was per position. Which I thought, I can request that again.
I don't know if she still has a chart made, so that's, because everything's different.
Yep, okay, thank you for that. Okay, Melissa.
It's my turn.
Mhm.
Okay. So we just have one warrant article for the school, and that is we've reached an agreement with the Brentwood Teachers Association. We're super excited. It is for 4 years. What it entails is the 4-year contract would have increases of 3%, 3%, 2.5%, and 2.5%. We did some shifting on the insurance contributions, just to incentivize people to take the deductible plan. When I say deductible plan, it's a $1,000 deductible with copays. The deductible applies to hospital stays and, the big diagnostic testing. And then next thing is, since the town was doing, salary adjustments all around, we found that our teachers, at the lower end of the scale, the first few steps, they were the lowest paid, or one of the lowest paid within the SAU, so we've adjusted that scale at the lower end.
But the rest are in line?
Yeah.
At a levels.
So, this is what we're looking at all in over the next 4 years. The warrant article for this year is 156,200. The next year is 137,473. 125,802 and 124,764. And the reason why it's higher for 2023 is because we had the market adjustment for those lower steps. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second it.
Is this to discuss or to accept?
I figured to accept.
Does anybody have any questions or?
Does that have any effect on the budget that we approved previously?
Yes, it does.
Well, it doesn't affect the budget, it's just a warrant article for additional spending. So it would
And the additional spending is
156,200.
to account for the contract that's been negotiated? Is that
Correct.
that's the overage is totally with for the settlement of the, okay.
But we are still at a reduction over last year.
Do you know how much reduction, dollars or?
Yeah, we're trying to figure that, we were trying to figure that out earlier.
Just under 300, isn't it?
Warrant article for 2022 would be 156,200. So, the budget itself was a 4.27% reduction, which was 37 cents on 1,000. So now we add in
264.
22. So now it's minus 15 cents on 1,000. Do I have that right?
Yeah, 174% down.
And the total on 425.
So it's down 110.
Yep. So I get reduction of 6 cents overall per thousand, and reduction of $25 per, for the house of 425.
We do still have a reduction from the Swayze budget and the warrant articles, less of a reduction, but, so 6 cents on 1,000 or $25 on the $425,000.
Seems entirely reasonable to me.
I definitely think so.
Yep.
They're phenomenal staff. I would, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the warrant article for Swayze for the teachers' contract for $156,200 for 2022? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right.
Thank you.
And we move on to all of the other warrant articles. So we'll start with the solar array. Andy, do you wanna?
Sure. To see if the town will vote and raise the appropriate sum of $17,000 to be added to existing solar array capital reserve fund. So, this was a fund that was established when we put the solar arrays in order to purchase the panels at the end of the contract.
How far from the end of the contract are we, and how much, what's our balance now? Do we know?
I don't know what the balance is, but if we don't put the 17,000 away, we won't have enough money to purchase. It was, when we designed it out, we designed it out what we needed each year in order to
Okay,
come up with the final number.
okay.
We have to be close to the end of it.
I think we're in year 4 of
What, 7,
4 of 6 maybe?
6? Okay. Did you make a motion, or was that,
Michelle was looking for it. I wanted to make sure she was not taking for information not needed.
I might not be able to pull that information out in a moment's notice. Or is it in the minutes? Did you discuss that in the minutes, Andy?
No.
I don't have that at my fingertips, but I wanna say it's at least year 4,
Yeah,
I think. Out of 5?
I think it was 6 or
I think
7.
it was 6.
is it 17 each year?
Yes.
It has been, yeah.
7 seems to stick in my head for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the year in our minutes from last year. So, any questions?
I would move we approve the 17,000.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next, the IT hardware, Andy?
See if town will vote to raise the sum of $25,000 to be added to the existing information service hardware fund. Same thing, this is the fund that we use to upgrade servers and desktops and laptops and, on the, advice of John Morgan going forward, we're actually gonna start looking at how many services we can move to the cloud instead of, cause we have a server, the police department has a server, and the fire department has a server. So, that's what, this money is for all those departments as well as computers for highway,
Okay.
so.
What was the balance? There was some discussion on that in the notes.
I don't have my balance sheet,
There aren't, there's no, in the minutes it doesn't give an amount.
let me see if I can put my hands on it.
Okay, awesome, thank you. I did that at 2 selectmen's meetings, so I'm just trying to go through the other minutes, just so, here we go. So the selectmen's minutes, there's currently $61,000 in that fund.
Mm-hmm.
Over the next 2 years, we would be slated to upgrade the PD and town office servers. Andy asked how much it would be for this upgrade. Clement responded that the last upgrade was about $25,000 each. And these must be done every 5 years. The warrant covers 3 firewalls, switches, and 39 network computers. And then it does go on to say that Morgan would like to explore cloud options in their cost. Clement said she would do so. So if they were to do 2 of them, they would deplete what's in there now.
Right.
I think it might be helpful to know what the cloud option would be.
Typically it's more.
Is it?
Yeah, the 25 for a server is a lot.
That probably includes the
Configuration,
service
everything,
and,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it did say it includes the firewalls and all those.
Yeah, cloud is typically more.
But are they talking about the cloud for all three, replacing all three? Is that,
I would imagine they would be talking about all of them, however many there are.
Yeah,
So the research for the
Interesting.
cloud has to be what's, we can find compliant and cost savings.
Yeah.
Police department has FBI standards for security that they have to meet, and the fire department has standards for HIPAA that they have to meet. So depending on the cloud service, it may be more expensive because of the security measures than what it would to replace a server. So that's what the investigation would be into.
would it at least theoretically be one cloud network that would replace the 3 servers that we have now?
I don't think so, because each needs different type of encryption and
Okay, so cloud may or may not be
suitable.
financially advantaged.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have the last budget sheet?
For last year?
No, like one that Karen gave us like a couple weeks ago, cause that had all the,
actually, she
fund
just,
balances in it.
oh, the fund, okay.
Did it?
I thought you were talking about
I
the
thought the
discussion.
last pages had all the,
No.
at the year-end 2021 budget.
Not the one that I have here. It does have the warrant article, but it doesn't have anything about the capital reserve funds on this one. Okay, any more questions?
No,
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
All right,
okay.
Any opposed? Revaluation?
Revaluation the same as the solar array, put 25,000 away each year to be able to do the reevaluation by statutory requirements.
And the minutes don't say what's in there now.
I think it's like the solar array where it's designed so that
Yes, it's
it will pay
designed
for it when
to,
it comes.
And that's a requirement, correct? We have to
Yes.
do that
Yes.
revaluation every 5 years. Any questions? Motion?
Move.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, town building?
town buildings, see if the town will vote to raise 50,000 to be added to existing maintenance of town buildings capital reserve fund. This was almost depleted by the funds, by the projects we have planned and ongoing. The Grange still needs a lot of work to it.
We don't know what's in there now? That's not in the minutes.
It's not in minutes, cause I thought we talked about it.
Oh, wait. No, that was revaluation.
Is this separate from the roads, the potential building of the shed for?
Yes, that has,
that's a
this is
separate-
just, for maintenance of town buildings, painting, roofing, heating, cooling, doors, windows, anything like that.
So the new building for Wayne is its own account? then?
Yes.
Is that,
So this project at the Grange, what else did you say, Andy? I'm sorry.
This project at the Grange, there's a couple, last year we did flooring in here, doors. Trying to think of what else we did.
something at the rec, maybe?
Yeah, we did that door project from the rec, I believe, is gonna come out of next year's funds. had my balance sheet.
What do you
You
spend
didn't
out of
send
that
it
fund
to-
every year?
It depends on building needs, like,
Because you've got operating,
one year we had to
Line
put a
items.
roof on this building, which totally
right,
trashed it. The library has been dipping into it every once in a while. They had to replace 2 furnaces.
mhm,
Plus we paint one side of the library every year. So every 4 years, the library gets completely painted because it's still wood siding over there. And part of the establishment of this fund was that they killed their building maintenance fund.
mhm.
Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Road repair.
Road repair of $350,000. We could spend a lot more than that on roads every year and still not catch up with everything. There is no money in it, we spend the $350,000 every year.
it's been low, it's been flat for a while, right?
Yes, it was 250 and, we did a look at what we were getting accomplished for that and we couldn't even, and then last year asphalt went up, so now everything's more expensive.
It's been 350,000 since 2016. There was 1 year we had it at 400, but, so it has been that amount for quite some time,
Is that the Prescott Road year?
probably. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, yeah, you made the motion.
I was just seeing if we knew what was in there. Who made the motion?
Jack and I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Highway vehicles?
Highway vehicles is usually at 50 and the selectmen change it to 100. Wayne has, truck problems. New trucks, old trucks, the selectmen last couple meetings ago decided to try to rebuild an old truck. But he also has 2 smaller dump trucks that are up over 10, 15 years old. So eventually those are gonna have to be replaced. So the selectmen moved some money around to not do it one warrant article and put the extra warrant article into.
Yeah, it was the snow article.
Yes, the snow. So,
Oh, so they took out the snow one and they're upping this one instead?
yes.
Okay.
And so I'll move that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I hope he gets vehicles that start.
Yes. And stay running.
Alright, town bridges?
If I remember right, we tabled town
Yeah,
bridges.
you haven't approved that one yet.
So we're not
You're not going to?
We're not going
Is
to,
it withdrawn or you're just not approving?
it is withdrawn.
Okay.
So you actually got bids for the
We got
Billboard Bridge?
one bid for the Billboard Bridge and our engineers are reviewing it, but there was enough money in the fund to cover that bid, plus to have
Okay.
contingency in case something else happens. So,
That's great.
Alright, then fire vehicles?
5 vehicles, 50,000. Joe, do you know what's in your fund?
A little over 160, I think. They haven't put anything in there since 2017.
So the discussion is that this is basically a down payment on the next,
This would be
Vehicle
a
to lease
lease
to buy.
payment on whatever,
I see bridges.
Well,
there.
either a down payment or a
I
lease
see
payment,
bridges.
depends what the board of selectmen decides to do at the time.
Mine's
But a truck's gonna be upwards almost $1 million.
Right.
So. And you wanna do that in the
I
next
added the
5
zero
years?
for 2022.
For Bridget.
Next 2 years. I was hoping
Just
5.
me?
2024 to keep it in somewhat of a rotation.
That's not right. Yeah, it is 0,
Okay.
because they just withdrew it for Bridge repairs.
So I'll, move that.
second.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Any opposed? Police facility?
We withdrew that.
Okay. Amphitheater?
Amphitheater was what the library brought forward,
Mhm.
kind of, when they were talking to us, so that's the 50,000 to work on that.
So out of curiosity, do you mind if we go back to the police facility, you withdrew that just,
We withdrew that because there was like 75,000 in there, so, which is enough to start doing plans and architectural work,
Okay.
so there was really no like reason to put more money in there because at $25,000 you would never save up enough to build it, so there was no sense of,
right, okay.
So,
that'll be a bond issue at some point then,
Yes.
presumably.
on the amphitheater, do they have quotes or
Yeah.
bids saying that it's gonna cost 50 grand, or, I'm just curious how they come up with the number.
No, it'll be a lot more than 50. I do think, if I remember reading the minutes, she had spoken with an engineer. Does that sound familiar, Andy?
yeah. They talked about it when they came and presented their budget.
I remember that.
Just that it's just the cost because of, in order not to have to do it again, there's gonna have to be some mason work and engineering work and, as we found out with bridges, anytime you hire an engineer, there's 50,000 in engineering right there. It's just crazy.
But they, I think Janice said they were 2 or 3 years away from actually doing something,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, so, okay.
So we should expect 50 a year for 3 years is that what's going
I
on?
think 50 at least the first year, and then they can figure out what they can do for donations and, cost.
Maybe the Friends will have some huge fundraising effort. for
Right.
it.
Plus, the town's always been good with labor as far as the highway and stuff like that to match. Sometimes we'll come up with matching grants. We did a lot of river work with matching grants. You know, we put in the labor and somebody else put in the money and,
Since we're probably not gonna have a $50,000 bake sale right off the bat, I'll move the 50,000.
second.
All in favor?
Alright,
All right,
Any opposed? Any? Full-time firefighter warrant, so. Andy?
So this is what we came up with for we took it out of the budget, put it into the warrant article. Pretty much the same parameters, except now the insurance is in the warrant article instead of under the fire department. The selectmen said that we would do the same thing and use the ARPA money to cover the cost of this warrant article. So,
So exactly how much is the warrant article?
the warrant article is for $115,210, but we're gonna use ARPA funds to cover that should it pass. So there'll be no funds raised by taxation.
So
We
no
put-
funds for the 115, but we still need the 204?
The 204 we put in there so people know the actual cost going forward. So that's the amount of money that would be part of the fire department budget in year 2023. So it was kind of like a full disclosure. If you vote for this, it's gonna cost you $203,000 every year in the future, at least.
Less whatever ARPA is.
Whatever ARPA we have
applied to.
available to cover it.
Right.
And
Yep.
ARPA is an ongoing thing?
No,
Mhm.
we have a
3 years.
set amount of money that we have to allocate within 3 years and spend within 5.
Is it okay to involve the chief in this
Sure.
discussion? Do you have an idea how many mutual aid calls were required or that you would?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that figure in front of me, I'm being perfectly honest with you. As I told you before, the mutual aid pretty much becomes an even wash by the time you do things, because you run back and forth between the two. The idea behind that was more the coverage in town and trying to avoid that delay to get you something there.
And the delay is,
The delay is if I don't have my couple of people on at night, or I do have my couple of people on at night, they will do a tone and you'll get an ambulance in 10 minutes, maybe 15, depending on where you are in town. If you do the other way, it's a tone, excuse me, it's a tone with about a 5-minute interval in between, with another tone for my people again, depending on who's dispatching, that could be another 5 minutes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, because you sit up there and do it. Then you do the mutual aid town, and assuming they've got people sitting there, it's now that 10 minutes plus whatever it takes them to get into town. If they don't, they do the same thing, they'll go back through the same process, so there's another 10, 15 minutes into that. You could be 20 minutes to half an hour waiting for an ambulance.
okay.
Out of curiosity, and I know that this kind of, it's a little moot since we've already made the decision on the budget. Do we have somebody on call every night?
We try to have somebody on call every night. That was the idea behind the stipend that we increased.
Right.
I'm paying out $100 a night per 2 people to be in town, not in the
Right.
station.
Right.
So I want that clear. It's not coming straight from the station. That
Right.
takes them 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes to get to the station. And then it's another 5 or 10 minutes back to wherever they're going. The time they pick the ambulance up. If you're lucky, it's one person coming up, the other person will meet them on scene type of thing. If that doesn't happen, and they both have to meet, that's what you're looking at. The idea behind the 24-hour coverage is to put somebody into the station, so at least you get that immediate response. And then if I've got that second on-call person coming from home, they can come to the scene, they'll take whatever apparatus it is, or the transport for the ambulance, they'll come back and pick the person's car up. Type of
Mhm. But just to be clear, most nights you do have somebody.
Come to summertime, come to summertime, it could be any way. It could be, I got it covered, I don't. I can tell you, to be honest with you, once the nice weather gets here, it gets harder and harder to cover that.
Yeah.
And the reason being is, you sit down and you do your barbecue in the backyard, you decide to have a beer. Well, the policy pretty much is, I don't wanna see you. So, once you've done that, that becomes a thing, and then you get vacations involved also under that, and it's tougher. This time of the year, it's been pretty good. I've still had a couple open nights, but not what I had before I increased it. The only way to avoid that is 2 guys, 24 hours a day.
I'm gonna move that warrant article.
So the actual number then is the 204,364
Yeah,
for this year.
yeah. The actual number for this year is the
115.
115. Should that be approved, 204 will be added to next year's fire budget. That's the full year cost of those 2 positions.
So the 115 is the amount for 2 full-time firefighters
For
for the
the,
rest of the year.
yes,
And there's no tax impact from that this
Correct.
year.
correct, because we're gonna use ARPA money to cover the 150.
And just so you're aware, that position will start in June, more than likely, by the time I do the postings and what I gotta go through to hire someone.
So we put the two figures in there so it was transparent of what it would cost going forward. So somebody didn't think that it was only gonna cost 117 in the future. That was only for a part of the year.
So your original ARPA funding for this was 250 for the first year, I think, right?
We have three,
It was like 250, 150, and then 50, I think. I thought that's what it was.
that's how we originally worked it out.
Right. So what are you gonna do with the ARPA funding now?
It stays until we still can use the money to offset it in years future. We just have to have a plan on how we're gonna allocate it
Right.
before the end of 3 years.
Is it most likely going to be,
It's most
Or
likely gonna
fire?
be used to offset the fire,
okay,
but unfortunately, this board of selectmen cannot bound another board of selectmen to do something,
Right.
so
okay. So did you move this?
I did.
I'll second.
May I, before we go in the voting mode, may I ask, I appreciate the transparency, but I find the warrant article really confusing.
Yeah.
Do you think I feel like it's gonna generate like too much talk. Is there any, not that I have a better suggestion, to be perfectly honest, but
I think it all is how it is explained at town meeting.
do you need to put the 204? Is that something that could be explained?
I totally agree with the Board of Selectmen. I think if you're gonna go through this process, and you guys didn't wanna take it up front, then it should have been, this is what it's gonna cost you next year.
Well, I definitely think people should know, it's just the wording is, have you seen the way it's written?
Yeah, I've seen the way.
Yeah, it's very confusing, that's all.
Yeah.
Even if it
It-
had the
it's-
204 and you explained the 115
Yeah, it's,
after the
it is
fact.
confusing, yeah.
Well, unfortunately,
You can't change it,
we can only vote to approve, recommend or not recommend.
right?
How will this appear at the town meeting? People will read this, they'll come, and then it'll be called, but will somebody, maybe
So the
the
way
chief,
every
will
warrant
will
article
somebody
works-
speak to it?
Is,
Oh.
the way every warrant article works is, the Board of Selectmen move it to the floor. We say a couple words about it. The Budget Committee says a couple words about it, and then Joe would speak to it. And then Joe would answer any questions that are raised by the floor, unless it's financial directed towards the Budget Committee or procedural directed towards the Board of Selectmen.
Mhm.
Okay.
So just to be really clear though, I just wanna say that I don't know that anybody here has said we're opposed to this in any way.
No,
We
I don't-
definitely support it, it's just,
But we can't
That's all.
change it.
no, that's fine, but I just wanna put that, we support it, we just wanted people to have their say, that was all, so.
Oh, yes. It's a different way to present the same thing.
So we basically split up I know that we can't do anything here about this, but, so we basically split up the increased cost on the fire, because we've got the change to the matrix, right, and we've got the change to the ambulance coverage that we put in the operating budget, and then we've got this other, which is the incremental above and beyond that. If this gets approved, does it change the operating budget?
No, this gets added to.
It gets added to, okay,
So as the year goes on, this money would get moved in this money would get moved into the fire department payroll line.
right. But
Same
does
as-
it change the calculus, does it change the calculus of what was already approved from an operating budget standpoint?
No.
Right, okay.
Same way.
Because if we've
that-
got two people on, then we obviously don't need the coverage, the
The only way that
nighttime coverage.
changes, the only way that changes the coverage, if the question you're asking is that would get down to one person on the call list
Mhm.
that night. There has been things built into the budget, should I not be able to do that, that I may be able to come back with a per diem.
Mhm.
And I avoided, because of the overtime, trying to keep the full-time guys out of that, because that becomes expensive. So I built some things in there to hopefully offset the one or two the nights that I don't have that second person. But I'm being perfectly honest with you, there's no guarantees.
Hmm.
I'd love to have the crystal ball that said everything's gonna work off this.
The other side of that, though, is that first year was 250 on ARPA. Are you not applying the full 250?
That would be up to whatever the Board of Selectmen wanna do next year.
Okay.
Right now, it's just gonna be that, and then we can use the rest to offset the budget if we need to.
Okay.
And I'm sure that'll be a discussion had at town meeting.
No, the only reason why I asked that is because there was a large increase just in the operating budget as
Right.
it was. And then the original ARPA money, the 250 offsetting that made it more palatable.
Can I second now?
Oh my gosh, you're saying it.
You already did.
I didn't, she said I had to take it back.
Sorry, I appreciate it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Newsletter, so I just took that out of that warrant article chart. Can you look and make sure I did it right, so I can see the total tax impact of the warrant articles at the following.
Yeah, I've been updated.
It's, okay, perfect. Newsletter.
See if the town will vote to raise $11,781 for the purpose of printing and posting and distribution of 8 issues of the newsletter.
So scared to ask, because I'm sure you discuss it ad nauseum at this Board of Selectmen meetings, but just out of curiosity, so I'm assuming this 8 carries you through to January 1, right? What happens to the other 3 or 4 issues at the beginning of next year?
Depends what happens to Article 14.
Why?
Because it asks whether it's gonna be in the budget or not.
So either way, the first 3 months of next year would be a, excuse my French, crapshoot like it has been this year,
Right.
whether they get a check or not. for those
Well, I
contributions.
believe if it's supported, then the selectmen would find the money somewhere for it. If it's not supported, then it would have to wait till March.
Legally, we had to do it that way.
Well, we can't appropriate funds to be spent unless we created a revolving account.
Is there an
Just-
agreement,
I'm sorry, what?
is there an agreement now?
No. We were scheduled to talk about agreement last night. Nobody from the newsletter appeared.
To be fair, nobody from the newsletter is officially invited or asked to be there. And also to be fair, there was no prior knowledge of the contract. or
We
the
discussed it
draft
at
of
length at the
contract.
board meeting and actually asked one member of the newsletter board to submit an outline of what they would like to see in the contract. Whoever the spokesperson was that sat at the table with us.
Is that the CPA lady? CPA lady?
I forget who.
Yeah,
it was.
I don't remember.
I don't
her
know what
name,
her
but
name
she-
was,
I
but
think she was a CPA and she,
Julie, yeah,
yeah.
I'm just
And she
saying.
said that she will get, no, I couldn't remember, I'm sorry, her name. But she was saying that she would get an outline to us. Well, to the.
But we're hoping to ship them a copy of what we've come up with and have them ship something back to us and have a discussion of what works best for the town.
I'm not comfortable without an agreement of some kind, and,
Well, it would have to be worked out before town meeting to be discussed along with this warrant article.
There's no mentioning of it in the warrant article though.
No.
I thought that there would be, my understanding throughout the whole year, when it was raised, was that there would be something within the warrant article itself that would specify that, you know, certain.
Well, that's warrant
requirements-
article 14, whether we want to continue with the newsletter.
Yeah, but that's gonna bring us back to the discussion the way that it was last year versus, you know, there was things that were requested last year that it took the whole year and we still don't have those things such as parameters, whether there's gonna be a contract or not, or, you know, it's not even asking for specifics within that contract. It's just asking the select board to decide for themselves, right, how they're gonna treat it. And it took the whole year, and those questions haven't been answered. That's my only point, that there were specific questions asked. So I guess like what stops it then to keep on repeating, right, each year? The same questions would be asked, and each year we're gonna have a warrant article and the same, no answers. Like that kind of makes it more difficult to make a decision of whether or not to just, I feel like I personally would have felt more comfortable just putting it in a budget once I know that there's a contract, these are the standards, these are, you know, and it's taken care of so that there's no more controversy, if you will, on that subject. You know, if people want to go then and talk about whatever, that's whatever, it's like them talking about any other news or any other thing that can happen in the world. So, but those are, the contract is kind of,
Is there any way we
like,
can
why is it so difficult? It doesn't even have to be that elaborate.
maybe see an agreement before we actually vote on this?
We have to present the budget and the warrant articles next Wednesday in our public hearing.
The
So we
agreement
have
doesn't
to-
affect the
so we-
money.
So we have to decide on these things before next Wednesday. If we change our mind, if we don't make a decision or change our mind after next Wednesday, we have to have another public hearing. And there isn't, we backdate that from the time of the annual meeting, town meeting to be next week. So
So-
there's not a lot of leeway if we change our mind after next Wednesday to then hold another public hearing.
Procedurally, tonight all we're doing is voting to recommend or not recommend. At town meeting, this is gonna be discussed, and if the majority of the legislative body doesn't like the progress that the selectmen have made, they're gonna vote not to approve the funds for the newsletter. If they do, then they'll vote however they want. But procedurally, the budget committee tonight can only vote to approve or not approve the warrant article. And then that shows in the warrant article itself that supported by selectmen, opposed by budget committee, or supported by budget committee. I think it's opposed or not
Recommended.
supported, recommended and
Recommended, yeah.
not recommended.
Yeah, so the way I look at this is that it's a reasonable amount of money for a function that we've always had, and the select board has time to sort it out between now and then, and the vote. So,
But by all means, if you're not comfortable spending that money, you can vote that you don't wanna recommend it.
No, it's not, for me, it's not the money. It's that in recent years, the newsletter has been divisive for our town. And
But
it's,
fortunately, Jack, we can only approve or deny the money. We can't approve or deny the issuance of a newsletter.
Yeah, that's not our function here. Our function here is just to decide whether or not to support that dollar amount. And then you know, town meeting or whatever, you can express your opinion about everything else, but the function of this board, even if there was a contract, it wouldn't be up to us whether or not
We
to
like
agree or disagree with that contract. That's not our role. Our role is just to decide whether or not to support that amount of money.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there any way that, I know you guys are talking about the contract, is there any way to amend the warrant article to say that the contract needs to be,
Not right here, there isn't.
okay, that's what I was, because it sounds,
So at town meeting, you can amend the warrant article, but unfortunately, this board can only
approve or
approve or
okay, that's all I was.
recommend or not recommend the dollar amount of the budget
I'm
of the
just
warrant.
trying to
But at town
understand
meeting-
procedurally.
You can only, so you can change the wording?
You can change, as long as it doesn't
I'm just
change,
confused, how
Can't
did it,
change
like,
the
went the
intent
whole
then.
year
You can't
without
change the
things
in-
being answered? Like, how can it be that there are 12 months, that silly thing, like, here's the contract, I can write it up in one page, like, and no one, like, what is it, like, why is it such a big deal?
Well, I mean, if you wanna ask it that way, it's been 12 months, and nobody presented the Brentwood newsletter with anything. Actually, they still haven't,
Well,
unless it's been
usually it's
sent
the
today.
vendor, usually it's the vendor who would, like, if I'm providing you services, I'm gonna give you my contract, and you're gonna tell me what you disagree or whatever, and we're gonna go back and forth, and then I'm gonna say, no, I don't, it
I'm
doesn't work
just
the other
answering
way.
your question, over the last 12 months, why hasn't anything happened? Well,
As
there hasn't been, no, there hasn't been a contract in the past, so us, the newsletter coming forward, I mean, if the town is wanting it, then the town can bring up their draft. They didn't do that until yesterday, as far as I'm aware, so. Anyway, off topic, do I have a motion to, support the 11/7/81 for the Brentwood newsletter?
Moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed.
Okay, so 4-2. All right, and then the final article actually doesn't affect us?
Nope,
We
but the,
can't- We can't vote on it?
nope,
because
but the
there's no
next one,
financial in-
So the concert.
Oh, right, the conservation. Commission.
conservation one.
So we as a, just so I understand, we as the budget committee don't need to vote on Article 14 because there's no financial impact, so it's sort of out of our purview. But there is, I don't even know if I printed that one out. Did you guys all get the one for the,
Like, I feel like I looked at it several times tonight now.
There it is.
Is it in the third?
I didn't even print it out.
You sent it out
I just
separately
got it
after the
today.
second one,
Yeah, I just got it today.
Conservation.
Yeah, did you guys discuss this?
last night.
Okay.
So,
3 million.
to answer your question, any warrant article can be amended as long as it doesn't change the intent. So, there was a discussion last night about changing the amount of issues in order to change the dollar amount. Like, as long as it doesn't change the intent of a warrant article, you can change the dollar figure, but you couldn't change it, add $50,000 to the fire department capital reserve fund and change it to library capital reserve fund. If that makes sense.
Okay, so this last
Well,
one, oh,
This
sorry.
is gonna be going in circles. No, but is this really $3 million? I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the conservation.
So, yes, so this warrant article is very long. It is a takeoff on a warrant article from 2002, where the Conservation Commission gave the selectmen the authority to spend up to $2 million in bonds. This is not, so this isn't gonna spend $3 million this year. It is allowing the selectmen to spend up to $3 million until
2027.
2027.
So.
And then the bonds of that have to be at least 15 years of maturity that they take
Okay.
out.
So this doesn't necessarily, this isn't, it does say raise and appropriate.
Yes,
So this would add the cost of a $3 million bond?
no, because it wouldn't take out any money until the selectmen spend it.
But how?
So,
So this is permission to float a bond, basically, isn't it?
yes, so in 2002, the Conservation Commission brought this to the selectmen. I believe the largest bond the selectmen floated at that time was like $100,000. No, $500,000. In order to purchase land. The idea came because the conservation's hands were kind of tied with this Mill Road property, that had there been money available that they could have spent, they may have been able to buy it instead of the developer. But now I think the developer bought it just for over $1 million, and he said, I believe there was a conversation with the Conservation Commission that if he even thought of selling it to them, it would be for over $5 million. Because that's what his estimated profit is from this
That's it.
plan.
I'm in the
So
wrong business.
if he doesn't wanna do,
Yeah.
if he doesn't wanna, so they're just trying to have funds available to do
Right.
purchase.
But how does it work? I guess my question is a little, to understand the technicality, right? So, and I'm sorry, I haven't actually
No, that's
had much
fine.
experience with bonds, right? So do we have, like, is there, like, how, if I were to project it out and see how much it might cost, right? Like over 15 years or whatever the bond will be. Where would I find information of how much the interest might be, right? Because then it's amortization schedule. We can quickly kind of figure out what the interest and debt, principal payments would be. So is there like a government website that would carry that, or how does it work?
So this would be the New Hampshire Bond Bank. But it would be dependent upon how much money we borrowed and at what time we borrowed it is what the interest would be.
Right, but for the estimate, like they have, you know, like even the public, like if I were to, their schedules right now that have an outlook for mortgage rates, for example, there's an
Right.
outlook, right? The federal bank kind of sets it up, reserve, and you can run and say, okay, on average, right, if it's within the next 5 years that we're gonna do it, this would it, again, plus minus, but this what it's gonna cost us,
Yes.
right? Versus just in general, like,
Well, the selectmen, they may never spend this money.
right,
This selectman may spend 100,000 of the money in a 15-year bond. They may need to spend 1.5 million in a 30-year bond, so everything's gonna be,
yeah. I think it's just with so much interest in land and Brentwood being the last piece of that land in the area, I think they will spend it. You know, what I mean? It just, it kind of,
well,
eventually.
You never know.
So it would be good to just understand, so is the New Hampshire Bond Bank, is that, okay, I'll look it up, I guess. I'm just.
that's who we would get the bond from. That's where all of our current bonds are coming from.
Let me see for a second.
There was a comment last night that the last time they floated a bond for about 2 million, but that enabled them to get some other funds,
Yeah,
so that actually they were able to spend about 7 million.
yeah, it was 5 to 7. They weren't quite sure, but
So 2 or 3 times for the, I don't know where the other funds came from, but it seemed like to have the ability to borrow the money at a certain point in time was good for that.
kind of like last year when we bought the Fish and Game Farm. Southeast Land Trust was able to secure federal grant money, so the town only had to put a portion of it up, and then Southeast Land Trust helped the town get federal grants for the rest of it. So that's how that works. You need to have, the problem is if you don't
Okay.
have this working capital, it has to wait until town meeting. So sometimes you can't do a land deal because, you know, you have 100 acres, or your father had 100 acres, he passed away, and the family wants to sell it, and the Conservation Commission comes in and says, hey, do you think we can try to work something out? And then you find out that you're gonna have to wait 11 months before you can do anything.
Couldn't you have a special hearing at any point in time throughout the year?
You would have to have a court approval for it. So yes, you could have a special hearing, but you would have to get a,
Oh, I thought it was based on signatures. Is it signatures and then you get the court approval?
yes.
But it essentially is a process that the town is saying, okay, I don't know whether it's selectmen or conservation committee, that you, at any point in time, can get, if you deem necessary, up to $3 million in a bond.
Yes.
Really respectfully, why would we do this if we're arguing over a couple $100,000 for a couple of firemen though? Do you know what I mean? It's $3 million.
I don't know. Same reason why the town did it 10
So-
years ago for 2 million.
Payments though, hold on a second, I did look up the New Hampshire Bond Bank, whatever that the thing is. So currently, if we were to do it right now,
Yeah.
the interest rate is 2.09% for 20 years. There's 10 and 20, so I'm not gonna do 10, I assume it's gonna be 20. So that's 15,000 a month, and that's 183, call it 184 rounded per year.
I don't, so I hear what you're saying about the money, but to me, like, that's not even a question. To me, it's a process. Like, I'm all about transparency and, right, the town should have their say, and we're saying $3 million just a handful of years ago, that was the entire operating budget for a year in this town. That's a lot of money just to hand over to a subcommittee or committee or, wow.
It would be
Well,
select board
I
approval.
mean, in
Back
lieu of-
20 years ago, they did it for 2.
So think of how much that
So
was.
think of that comparison,
I-
what
I
2 million was
just-
then versus what 3
Right.
million is now.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, my understanding, Jack, was that it was, they approved the 2 million, but the kind of, the ROI was the 7 million, it wasn't that we spent 7 million.
No, that's what he said.
Right.
Oh, okay, I just,
What do you mean by ROI?
Return on investment.
Well, no,
the value of the property that we bought ended up being 7 million,
got it.
the expense was 2 million.
So the market value at the time it was purchased.
Yes.
Sure.
Or what funds, because of that 2 million, we were able to gain another 5 in
Hmm.
I
grants
have
or
another question.
matching.
What do we do with that land? Just out of curiosity, like, I'm not as familiar, I haven't been attending those meetings, I gotta make time, obviously. But, so let's say if they bought that farm, which now is a development, which I don't agree with the development, but at the same time, what would have we've done with the farm as a town?
So they didn't buy the farm that is now a development. We paid for the farm. The Mill Road thing is a whole different development,
Okay.
the thing that we can't buy now for $5
Right,
million.
but what would
It's
they,
two
what
different
would have they
things.
have done then? Like, would have been like recreational center, like, what does town do with that land once
So
we
could-
buy it?
Our conservation land now, there are a couple different pieces of land. So we bought the development rights to the South Road piece of property. So the farmer farms his land, but it can never be developed. So we took away we gave him so much money to say, you can no longer develop this land, it can only be used for farming. And then each contract is different of what's open for hunting, fishing, walking trails, depending on the nature of, obviously, the farmer doesn't want people walking through his crops, so there's different, but the town could do anything it wanted, it could just make that all open space and open to the town, or to be like Exeter did and carve out a house lot. If you drive by 101, there's a house sitting right on 101. They carved out that house lot and made the rest conservation. So their driveway actually has a parking lot in it where you can go out and run your dog or hunt or fly a kite or whatever you wanna do.
Yeah, I guess
So
my difficulty here is that there's been so much talk, and again, I might be just new to all of this at this point, because I haven't been involved in these discussions, but there's been a lot of discussion about, coming up with bringing businesses or having a downtown or some sort of, right? And I would feel better spending that money on that and knowing that it's gonna bring back, like, not understanding, like, if we buy land for $3 million and then let someone farm, it doesn't mean I get free carrots, like, it's just.
No, it means you don't get another 200 kids in the school.
Yes.
So
Right,
that's the
right,
idea
but-
behind conservation, is it's
No,
a
I understand that. It's just-
one-time investment, whereas if you build a house lot, now you have to increase school, you have to increase police, you have to increase fire. It just keeps
Yeah.
expanding every year what it costs the town, whereas conservation is a one-time investment.
Right, but we're not gonna be able to buy all of the available land out there, so it's gonna happen regardless.
Totally
For $3
agree.
million, we might buy 3 lots,
Well,
so
and
that's not gonna be
and
hundreds of
the aim
kids.
isn't necessarily to buy all undeveloped land. The Conservation Commission they wanna conserve land, for a number of reasons, but habitat, we're in a watershed, trying to, keep the watershed safe, it's not just, not building houses is a valid point, and with the expense of kids in school and all of that, but there's a whole other, environmental aspect of conserving the land as well.
Yeah, I
and
guess I'm
that's-
just trying to understand what's
Well,
exactly, like, this explains
that's-
better than not having, I'm sorry, not to, but that runs the wrong way.
And also the 3 million, I don't foresee that they would spend $3 million on a piece of land. As discussed, it would give an opportunity to acquire an amount of money that maybe then could be matched by other money. In a lot of instances with the conservation land, like with SELT, or there's, I think there's a New Hampshire, something or other, there's federal money that you can get. to add to your own funds to conserve land for those kinds of reasons, for habitat and wildlife and all that
So
stuff.
do we own any, like, how much of the town available land right now is actually owned by the town, or is it?
Well, conservation land doesn't necessarily mean the town owns it.
Let me, I can speak of experience. We gave 100 some odd acres on the Exeter River, so here in Brentwood, so I'm very familiar with this. It can be done, like she said, through one of the national wildlife, because they put the land in perpetuity. It doesn't necessarily belong to the town. We donated to SALT basically, and the National Federation, whatever the heck, National Wildlife, the government, the federal government, And so that land out there in the back, our land was all on the Exeter River. And along the pit, all those things out there. Now they have trails, they have fishing, they have camping, they have all those things that that land forever will be only for use for the town people, keeping it green. And for most people, and it's exactly what it is, it keeps the land as it is forever.
Right, but you donated that.
I
I'm talking about the
donated.
$3 million that would be appropriated to buy land, like, that's,
No one offered, so what can I tell you?
So in a lot of instances,
I would have taken it had they offered me any,
well, you see, that's the thing, like, once it's there.
well, when they were trying to do Martin Road,
Right.
they were going to get some money, if I'm understanding this right, we were going to give them some money for them to put it into conservation, is that right?
Yeah, so Martin Road was the same thing. Martin's on South Road. We were gonna buy the development rights. So they were still gonna own their land. They would but in perpetuity, nobody would able to build another house on that land. We would buy all the development rights. So there's different ways of
Right.
putting land into.
It's all new to me, I'm only
Different
asking questions,
land
I don't
into-
understand
Yeah,
it,
it's
so-
two parts to it, like with ours. Some of it went into conservation, some of it went into, like he said, that part. And other parts just, and then when we got done all together, we donated our, what do you wanna call it? We had the right-of-way went to the federal, conservation. And I can't even remember the name of the agency at the moment, because I'm running things in my head, but, we donated the right-of-way, and then the rest of it, we chose to donate to SALT, which cost us money, by the way. We had to donate, you have to pay for the taxes and help them offset the cost, because we had a gravel pit out there, which that was part of the conditions, had to be closed down, and that very costly. So in essence, we had to pay for that. So it wasn't, we didn't donate everything, but it was two parts. But what we got done is, we now have a very, the gravel pit is gone, it's all filled in, it's all safe land. That was my biggest problem, was that gravel pit. And the kids riding their snowmobiles and their four-wheelers and all those things up outside. I didn't sleep nights. And now the town has a beautiful thing out here, all safe, and forever it'll be without house lots, and there'll be hunting, fishing, agriculture, anything like that can be done. The only thing it can't have is wheeled vehicles. So, that was the condition, one of our conditions, because you get to choose that, as I recall. And it's just a wonderful way to preserve the town and the open land, so-called the Green New Deal. Well, this is the form of the green, a very, very good one for the town and for the people, forever.
And then that land is managed, so it's not just like left to grow wild.
Oh,
but
right, they go
come
in, they take care of
Come
it.
in and,
Yeah.
make sure that, I don't know, if trees need to be cut or whatever, it's managed.
Oh, yeah, and the animals, everything is, the CELT group is the one that does it with ours. They, they're, I can't think of the gentleman, what his title is, but basic conservationist, as close as I can come. And it's maintained, I say the gravel pit was filled in and reclaimed, or whatever you call it. It's a wonderful thing to do for your town, it really
You've
is.
seen the warrant article, right? You're speaking to the warrant article for the up to $3 million right now.
She's just talking about
She's talking
I'm
conservation.
talking about conservation in general.
But I'm just saying, it's very.
Conservation is a rule, is a good thing, very good thing.
I just wanna make sure, because you're very conservative, that we're talking about up to $3 million for.
Well,
I'm not talking about giving them,
So-
I'm not
so
talking about giving them
Back
money.
when they had the $2 million, whatever dollar
Yeah,
amount,
yeah.
my outlook was, once that land is developed, it's gone forever. You don't ever get that land back.
That's my point.
So,
No, I'm not saying $3 million, I'm saying.
I'm just struggling with everything else we've been told.
No, I understand that, and so the cost of this warrant article, what is the cost of this warrant article?
Nothing until
Yeah.
until,
And then
But how
Until-
so it's up to 200.
It would depend on the property and the cost of that particular
Right.
property or whatever, but it's not like they're going to spend $3 million
so Lois,
at one
the
time.
conservation, to bring you up to speed, the Conservation Commission floated the same idea that happened in 2002.
With the farm,
No, the town voted to allow the selectmen to spend up to $2 million in bonds to buy conservation land. The Conservation Commission's coming back with that same idea, but this time the number
but
is
is
$3
this,
million.
is this the specific one?
No
It's not
specific,
It isn't a
to anything.
because I understood the one, I just came from a place when they were talking about it, and he paid 1.5 million, and he wants 5 million for the land?
yes.
We're not gonna, that's not on the table.
Okay, that's.
We've
That's
lost
not what
that.
this is about.
So,
This
on
is,
the million, because million is reasonable to assume, right? On $1 million, the payments over 12 months with the current rate would be $61,000, 218 cents. Just to put it out there, I'm not, at least it's not 180.
Right, can you
Four.
help us understand that? So I understand the importance of the land, but why three, the significance of three? Is it because it's over so many years?
the idea was 3 because 20 years ago it was 2, and,
Was that enough?
well,
no,
it lasted.
They bought a lot of property.
It lasted, but now
Oh,
prices have increased, so it was just an offset of, okay, the town voted for 2 a year, let's try for 3 here. I mean, there wasn't, 3 wasn't a specific number for any reason besides, in 10 years ago, we did 2, cost of living's increased as well as property values, so
Oh, yeah,
let's
sure.
try for 3 now.
I just feel like over the past 20 years, the money was handled well and carefully, and it was well thought out, but as we've talked about, the boards change over time, right? Continuously, year after year, you just don't know. But I assume we're voting on just 3 million tonight, and then if it's gonna be a 1 million, then that would be amended at unified town meeting,
Yes.
so.
Well, it's also like if it's a 1 million at a time, you know what I mean? It might just be 1 million. I was just trying to understand the numbers in
Right.
terms of what it might come back
My
with.
question is, where did all of a sudden, right now you decided to do this?
Because
What was
Conservation
it?
brought it to the Board of Selectmen last night and asked
That
for
was
the
their
warrant
request
article.
for a warrant article?
so for anything to actually be purchased, does the Conservation Commission have to approve it and the selectmen?
So the warrant article, the terms of the article is no such bond shall be less than 15 years. The bonding authority will expire in 2027. The purpose is to convey parcels determined by the Conservation Commission to be strategic conservation interest to protect wildlife, habitat, and water resources while helping the town maintain its rural character. So yes, it has to come from the Conservation Commission to the,
But the select board have to approve it.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the
Yeah.
conservation commission over here doing their own thing.
Where practical, the land would be made available for the use of the citizens for recreation, i.e. hiking, biking, running, hunting, fishing, etc., within the laws of the state of New Hampshire. And then that
It sounds
continues
like
on.
it's the same thing.
Land or property interest to be purchased with bond proceeds shall be acquired in the name of the town by the Conservation Commission, subject to the approval of the Select Board pursuant to RSA 36A:4. So those are the requirements of the bond, should it be approved, that there has to be a determination that it's,
I like the
Does the
idea of
town
free
bond
cash.
that money,
I like the idea of free
No.
how does that work?
so the money would not be appropriated until there was a reason to appropriate it.
Oh,
So if the conservation came and said, we need $100,000 to complete this land deal, and the selectmen deem that it falls within this purview of the warrant article, the selectmen would have to create at least a 15-year bond
oh,
and start the land deal.
so there's, you're not in debt, what's the word, when you? the-
Not appropriating the $3 million
That's,
at this time.
okay, that's my question.
And
And-
there is no land at this time that they're looking at.
Right, that's,
So it's just,
yeah, it's
if
just
it
a what
comes
if.
up.
And I believe conservation at town meeting will bring how many years it took to spend the last 2 million, what we've gotten from it, what the benefits of, like, purchase to, you know, money invested to what we got out of the money invested. They should have a list of every property and
Oh, I'm sure there
what
was.
how it benefited the town. But I know there was no, like, $1.5 million deal done at once, it was all done. Do you remember
how
what
many
the farm
properties
cost us?
I don't remember.
I do, 149,000.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Oh, last year?
Hey, how many developments have we got in the last 2-3 years, just to understand, because I've heard at least 2, right, that came,
Two big ones.
right?
over the 3, I couldn't tell you all of the developments over the last 3 years.
Not as singular homes, but like this guy buying and developing
Oh,
for
yes.
80 houses or whatever.
Wow.
Is this the second one, or third one, or fourth one of the,
He did the one off of North Road,
I'm just thinking like,
Which was
but he's developed in town forever, I believe he
I'm just thinking
developed
he's gonna
Giganti
keep
Park.
going. That's the thing.
Falzone, how much?
Well, anybody
I don't know.
who decides not to sell their land to him.
Well,
He
that's,
wants
He may
to
have,
go.
he did.
that's the
I don't
problem,
think he
is
did the one next to
prices
me, I'm not
rise, you
sure.
know, people, it becomes very, I mean, if you can get $1 million for something that you haven't,
I can't understand
it's
what
been
she
in your
says.
family forever and you've never been in that kind of money.
Well, I mean, what would have been nice with that parcel that he's buying over there is the land on the river, if maybe if we could have conserved a portion of that, you know?
Yeah, no, I've
Even
heard about
instead
that,
of
I was, just,
Another,
I
what,
mean,
7, how many more is he putting over there?
The last
70
thing I
something?
saw, there was a downsize in numbers, and there was conservation land along the river. But still
But
nothing's.
it's another 70 over there, isn't it?
70 or
It's
80,
under
I
that,
mean,
it's in, I don't think
that
it
was up
reaches
here, back
70, I
there.
think it's in the high 50s or low 60s.
So 130 houses in, what, 2 years?
well, that's
3
what I'm
years?
saying, he's gonna
That's
keep on
unusual,
going, that's a lot of money that he's making on it.
But the housing market's gone crazy, like,
And they're gonna keep going too, because people want to get out of the cities, and Massachusetts is overpriced, everyone is pushing, you know, it's just.
That's why they're coming here, that's it.
But they're gonna end up making this that,
yes.
isn't they're going?
So let's conserve some more land.
Yeah.
I would move that we recommend this
Second.
warrant article.
All in favor?
I,
All right,
Opposed?
Oh, I'm an aye, sorry.
I just,
Sleeping.
I'm not coming, I just wanna hear what the people have to say at the meeting.
So 6,
Well,
1
that's why you have a warrant article.
Okay.
For the people.
Yeah.
So any other business? Anyone from the audience care to say anything? All right, we will have our next meeting next Wednesday. Our meeting will be at 6 o'clock
This is
at the Brentwood Rec,
right, that's right.
and the public hearing will be at 7.
you need help,
We
like,
may or may not have any business to conduct before 7.
That's what I was gonna ask.
I don't know that we will at this point. I mean, nothing else can come up, right?
nothing else can come up, all warrant articles need to be in by yesterday,
Oh, they did?
yes.
Pizza party?
So we could, I was gonna say, I mean, we could probably, well, I've already
Well,
put up the
the-
agenda, but.
Not yours, because all warrant articles need to be selectmen by yesterday, the school board would have already voted on that
Yeah.
prior to bringing it here.
do you need help setting up for
I'm not
anything?
sure, I have to, I don't know if Andy will do that, or if we have to, not you, Andy,
What was the
the other
question?
Andy.
I believe
What that entails.
when I talked to Karen, they were gonna, between highway and Joe's gone, but usually we wrote some of the fire guys into coming up and highway and.
We need to be there at 6.
We won't have this, so I mean, don't get now. 6,
Okay,
Are we anticipating?
yeah.
I don't, was suggesting, I don't know that there, I don't know that there'll be more people than this room would handle, but somebody had suggested it may be a,
We talked earlier, there was 58 people that watched our last meeting.
Well,
While it was happening?
No,
that's
Or
a
after the
first.
fact?
after the fact.
all after?
Is it broadcast right now? Or is it
Yes.
just?
All right.
No, I didn't know if it was taped.
Now
There's
I'll have
live
a
broadcast or
motion to
tape.
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn,
Second.
7/20/23. On
See you
2/2/2.
next week.
Please,
Should we do
2/2/2.
a second and a
Oh,
roll
yeah.
call? Aye.
Technically with an adjournment, you don't really need to vote,
Oh, you don't? Alina, do you want this back?